the end of the day.
It's Mel.
And me. You wanna know
How we did it.
You wanna know how we do it. You wanna know
How we
we're
doing
doing
it.
Welcome to the Mel and Me podcast.
At the end of the day.
Sunny Bunani.
Johnny?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jabula. I'm doing well.
Oh,
Danko.
yes.
And to our South African family out there, Sunny Bonani.
Yes, Sunny Bunani.
Let's see. Ube, Nokosu, Olule. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can get it right. Let's try this again. Ube, Nokosu, Olule. I believe that's what it would be. So correct me if I'm wrong, South African family. But that's my attempt today. Good to be back with you all
Yes, we are back.
for a new episode.
Yes.
Episode 15.
Yes, 15.
And we're going to call this one Reaching Across the Waters. Reaching Across the Waters. We are from the United States today.
Yeah.
Reaching back across the waters as we always attempt to do in these cases. So we're back in here doing it again. We came up with this most recent episode just last week we did not do anything that was focused on our experience in South Africa.
Right.
And what we're trying to do there. We kind of deviated and went back to some of our normal content. And of course, as we expected, we did not quite have the viewership as we saw with our South African content because all the stuff that we've done related to South Africa has just been off the charts, over the past few weeks. Like those numbers have just gone through the roof. And of course, we want to, as a result, we want to try to focus, where we can,
Right.
on content that caters, more so to that audience. And really just over the past couple of weeks, since we returned from our trip, and by the way, I almost ended back up. I really almost ended back up in Johannesburg this weekend.
Right.
I came this close to being on a plane yesterday to fly back over there because we had some business that needed to be taken care of, and it was rather unexpected.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the entity that I'm working with, that being the property executive, assured me that we can handle this business next time we're there. But I was surely online getting ready to secure me a ticket to come over there. It would have been a solo trip, so I would have been over there by myself.
Right.
So I would have had to take care of that business come Monday morning. But in the meantime, I might have got a little leisure in. I would have been by myself, so I'd have had a chance to explore Johannesburg and maybe hang out a little bit. Because my better half here doesn't, she'll hang out, but she doesn't hang out as much as I do, but she'll kick it with me, when we're over there and stuff like that. But I tend to be the one that's a little bit more apt to kind of, go out there and mingle and hang out and stuff like that. But we'll see if we can change that any. She's just, a little bit different than I am in that regard as far as exploring stuff. But still, so it didn't happen, and I didn't make it over there. I was really looking forward to it. In a way, even though I did have that unexpected business that needed to be taken care of, and it was unexpected, and tickets are not cheap.
Not at all.
To come over there. So, but I did find though that somehow, and I thought I had it, the search swapped around. I had my trip going from Johannesburg to Atlanta, not Atlanta to Johannesburg.
Oh,
and
that's when you found it was cheap.
It was like half the price, and this was on Delta. I'm like, it only cost. They had a ticket flying from from Johannesburg to Atlanta round trip. So for y'all that are interested in seeing the United States,
Reasonable.
you can, and I understand the economic situation
Yeah.
is different over there, right?
Yeah.
You know, but the tickets are much cheaper. It was like
Yeah.
$900 round trip.
Yeah.
If I wanted to fly from Johannesburg to Atlanta,
Yeah.
but it was like,
which is
you know,
very reasonable.
Delta had like a $1,700 ticket.
Yeah.
Going in the opposite direction from Atlanta to Johannesburg round trip.
Yeah.
So that's just something to note, you know, for those you interested in traveling. It is a distinct price difference if you're traveling from Johannesburg to Atlanta as opposed to Atlanta to Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So, you know, I thought that was rather interesting.
Very interesting.
But so I was almost there, so we'll just have to wait till the next time that we're actually scheduled to come there. You know, unless there's some surprise that comes up and I need to get on. You never can tell.
Yeah.
So we really do account for those things. You kind of have to have a little money sitting aside to say, hey, this is going to be for a surprise trip if I need to go over there for any reason, you know, or that type of thing. But so you know you plan for it, and that's all you can do. And you know, but I guess if something comes up in December, I could be over there during festive season, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, episode 15.
Yes.
Back on track.
Back up in there. And we would like to say thank you for the new subscribers.
Yep.
Subscribe within the last week.
Yeah.
You know, so we're very thankful for that and glad that you are finding our content to your liking.
Yeah, and people are saying that it's showing up in their algorithm because they're going to other channels. And I see even in our own analytics where it says like people who watch your channel also watch this. They watch this podcast. And it's some of the same people that we follow as well. So it's starting to, you know, the algorithm is doing what it's supposed to do, and we got people that are showing up and still, you know, saying cool stuff. You know, like I had a conversation with somebody earlier today about music, you know, that kind of inspired them during certain points in history, and we had the same type of thing. Of course, over here in our struggles, and music is always a driver of you know, struggles, you know, amongst peoples around the globe and throughout history.
Yes.
So that was cool. That they still haven't followed up with the exact answer that I was looking for.
Yeah.
I was looking for a specific song, and I gave them a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you still out there and you come up with that song, hit a brother up.
Yeah.
So we can see what song you identify for us.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's just been that type of thing where we've just had so many, you know, cool people that show up and talk to us and stuff like that, and we have a chance to talk back. And we really enjoy that because it's all about, you know, sharing information, and that's kind of like what this episode is about.
Right.
It's about reaching across the waters, because that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do with our specific platform. Not only reaching from this direction, but also trying to nurture those bonds in the opposite direction as well. Because there are things that I feel that would better benefit our people, our brothers and sisters there, with understanding more so our perspective and from our side, and as we do theirs and sharing information and things that they might have wondered or had certain ideas about. You know, I think that's all a part of the growth process for us all, and I think it's going to be very important, you know, as we go forward, because, you know, as we get into this thing, we look at where we stand in history right now, right? And that's kind of the way I couch things, the way that I kind of center things, where we are in history at this particular juncture, or this particular point in history. We are at a critical time, because we see, you know, in the news how there's so much focus, and it has been around the African continent, and you know, all the larger powers that have always had their hands in the African continent and the African continent's pockets, so to speak, right, as far as natural resources and just that whole thing. And so I think we're in a time now that's conducive to our at a people level forming bonds and strengthening ourselves as a people, as a unified people, right? So it's been about, you know, and I went back and I researched this to find out and to see how long it has been since the first Africans were taken, our people, right? Our bloodline were taken from the continent and brought to the West, or what they dubbed as the New World back then, right? Which there were, of course, there were already people here,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
But they dubbed it the New World and said they discovered it and all this kind of stuff, and brought us over here, or our ancestors over
Yeah.
here, and that was about. I determined about, from what I learned, about 521 years.
It's a long time.
When the Spanish pulled the first of our people from the African continent and brought them over into the West. And so that's been a long time. I know a lot of times we use that term 400 years. So it's been 400 years. Well, in the meantime, the clock has
It's
continued
continued
to
to
tick.
tick. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and so we find ourselves in 2023, where we are,
Yeah.
right, and we're in a very special time in history, in the 21st century. And when you look at 21st century Africa, and like I've said before, there's no mistake that Africa has all the attention, and as I've continued to age, and mature in my own life, my eyes have begun to open more as far as what this whole thing has really been all about.
Yeah.
All of these decades and hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
And so now, we're in a situation where we have platforms,
Yeah.
where we can discuss these things, and we can
Exactly.
actually air a lot of this stuff out, right? And I think that's a very neat thing.
Because it allows us for different viewpoints too to be heard, and not just coming from one single program, one single person. You can
One
hear
single perspective.
Yes, one perspective. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to take a sip of my tea again.
I already did.
From the official Mel and Me, the podcast mugs there. So we're still sipping on our Moroccan tea that our daughter brought back from Morocco.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any? I don't know if, and we got to find out next time we're there. Let me know if there's any special types of tea in South
Yes.
Africa that we can bring back.
Yes,
Now
that's a good
I believe
idea.
East Africa is known for their tea as well. I believe.
I didn't think about that because I love tea. So I'm definitely interested in if there's, any
Definitely
good tea
let
that
us
we can
know if
bring it
there's
back.
any specific hot drink that we can enjoy that South Africans tend to enjoy, because we're gonna fall into it anyway at some point. But if we can, next time we're there, if we could bring some back with us, that would be great as well. But I was talking about where we are in the 21st century, and when you look at I looked up a statistic some months ago that talked about the average age globally, right? And the continent of Africa has the lowest average age of any other place, globally speaking. Any place else in the world, I think the average age, when I looked it up, was around 19, the median, the average age, right? So I mean, all of the young people
Yeah.
are on the African continent,
Yeah.
right? And that's huge, right?
Yeah,
Because
very.
that's your future.
Yes.
You're talking billions of people, man. That's where all the potential is, right? And so, that in and of itself is just a rather awesome number. And so that just tells you just the potential for growth there.
Yeah.
Because these are young people who have long lives ahead of them. And as technology advances and medicine advances and societies advance, those average life expectancies are going to continue to increase. And so it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so the African continent with where it's going, and all the investment that's happening there on the on the larger levels.
Oh,
You're
yes.
talking governments. Obviously China's a huge investor over there, and then you have more people, regular people, who are waking up to the idea of investing over there, much like we have.
Right, which
Right.
is really great.
Which is really good, because that, I think, more so than having governments invest, when you have people invest,
Yep.
that's when you get to a point of where you have what we like to call skin in the game,
Yes.
where you have some personal things at stake. And so it behooves you to tap in, and to begin to build the necessary bonds that would allow you to prosper, as well as that society that you're investing into to prosper as well.
Exactly.
Right. So, along with that, I would like to say, that there is a great, I think, awakening that has happened, or that is in process of that is happening in the African diaspora. You know, here, those of us, you know, estranged brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
you know, here in the United States, you know, now looking to, you know, the continent.
And I
there-
think a lot of that has to do just with the different platforms. People
Internet
talking about the
platforms.
internet platforms with the YouTube and all that, and people going over there visiting the country, coming back and talking about it now. And so I think that plays into it, which I think is really good.
Yeah, you get a chance to see what it's really like over there.
Yeah,
You get a chance
that
to
makes a
see
difference.
the real live pictures and the real live videos of people walking down the street.
Right. That
You
makes
know,
all the
and-
difference
and
in the
you
world.
see a building that looks just as modern, if not nicer,
Oh yes.
than the building in your downtown area,
Yes.
in urban, in metropolitan America,
Yes.
if you will, right? So so all of those things work into our favor.
Yeah.
And so let's look at what the past, let's say, as we call it, 521 years, the impact that it's had on us as a people. And the thing I want us to keep in mind in our discussing all of the topics on this particular episode is that the things that we're discussing here, I don't think our aim is not to really give our necessarily our opinions from a political perspective or a historical perspective or those type of things. In other words, those things that tend to stir conflict in people.
Right.
You know, because we each have had a lens that we've had to look through.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think a lot of times that has been detrimental to us as a people, because a lot of that has been informed and influenced by larger powers that are above our heads. Right. And so I think we have to be able to give each other a certain level of grace when it comes to that sort of thing. And so we want to make sure that, you know, in discussing these things, it's not about pushing a particular agenda or a particular opinion or viewpoint. The only real agenda really is, with us, as far as I see it, is unity.
Yeah.
Is trying to put things out there so that we have a better understanding of why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really our aim with this episode, and really most of the stuff that we'll put forward. And that's not to say that we might not at times raise discussions where we may even solicit input or feedback or put things out there for people to confirm or maybe highlight for us or those types of things. You know, but it's really all a part of, like we said, reaching across the waters.
Yeah.
You know, just putting stuff out there and just kind of establishing some things, I guess, to maybe shine some light on some things. You know. So, so let's look at the impact of things that have taken place over the past 500 years. The key thing for us over in the West is that the first thing we had when we were brought over here is we had our identities forcibly stripped away from us.
Yeah.
Right? That means our education, our language, our spirituality, our family relationships were ripped apart, right? All of that type of stuff.
Yep.
And so that type of thing, you know, played a huge role in where we as African Americans find ourselves today. You know, we were basically torn down.
It's true.
Right? And so we can look at our side, and we can look at, and that's been long-term impact even to this day.
To this day, oh, absolutely.
We still have to deal with a lot of those dynamics, things that attempt to keep us in a specific state, conditions in our society, right? Systems, right? And I'm sure our brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters on the continent, can probably relate to that same thing on a certain level.
Yes.
And on their side, let's just say, and we even saw it on this side over here, but more so over there because it impacted them as an entire continent. And see, over here in the West, we've been spread out. We've been spread out across North America, meaning primarily the United States, South America, the Caribbean, right? We've been spread across, and of course, with the Caribbean, you're in scattered islands all across the Caribbean, right? They had all these different drop-off points where they dropped our people. You know, whether it be, you know, the Bahamas, you know, Barbados, just the different islands, right? Haiti, just all over. Virgin Islands, we were spread all over the place. So we were spread out. Whereas on the African continent, all the countries are right there together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there at least appears that there was a broader, more significant impact over there. Which we could even to this day, even recently, we still see in the news, the thing with France.
Oh yeah.
And the rifts that continue to exist there, right? Because of the stranglehold that they still have, in a sense, even though the colonial period has officially ended, they still wield a great deal of influence because of things that have been in place over generations and generations.
Yeah.
So we understand, on that end that's something that's been into play, and with that presents a myriad of challenges, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, one thing that I can say that I find myself even to this day, because I go out there because of a post the other day, I had to go look something up, and I learned this morning. I realize more and more, and this is something that I want our indigenous brothers and sisters to understand, and it's probably the same thing that you encountered over there to a degree, or that you encounter over there, is that there has been deliberate barriers that have always been in place for us over here as African Americans from an educational perspective.
Yes.
Miseducation or lack of education about certain things, or literally keeping certain things out of our books and out of our curriculums, right?
Yes.
So that's
a big thing,
so that we
right
have
now.
No idea about it, and they're going right back to it now, right?
Back to it.
You got, Ron DeSantis, now the governor of Florida, who they're taking change in books, they're rewriting history books to change terminologies. They want
moving books out of the libraries,
removing books from libraries and from school curriculums. They want you to believe that slavery was indentured servitude, that we were basically brought here to be volunteer helping hands,
and that we benefited,
and that we somehow benefited from it.
You're right.
Right? These are the types of things that these systems continue to do to this day. And I don't know to what degree you all experience it on that side, but there has been a continual effort to miseducate us, if not keep the truth of history from us. And so there are just many things that took place on the continent over there that we just really have no idea about.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that it isn't taught over here, but it's discouraged from being taught. So when you have African-centered schools, which we are now starting to see a resurgence of those, more what they call African-centered education. In other words, Pan-Africanists, people who are part of the Pan-Africanist movement, who form schools over here to focus more on our history and our culture from an Afrocentric perspective. There's pushback against that.
Yep.
All the time. It's something that's discouraged, right? So these are things that we're always up against and that we've been battling, but thanks to the internet, and thanks to platforms that people have, we can now come directly and stand in front of each other, or sit in front of each other, and have dialogue.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can have that dialogue, here virtually, and that can turn into dialogue in person. So when you're on the ground, certain places, you can have those conversations with people, in the cafes and in the clubs, even,
So that is a good benefit of social media and the different platforms, because it allow you to be able to, confirm, refute information quickly.
Yeah.
And that's the best part, quickly.
Yeah. And see, also with that, there is, I would say, a bit of a conflict. There's kind of a natural conflict with being American while at the same time being African, descendant wise, right? Blood wise, right? Because we're African peoples,
Right.
But we're also American, and there's a kind of like an intrinsic conflict there, because of the fact that, as I just said, we've always been, especially coming up in the earlier years, it's gotten better, but and you know this just as well as I do. how we were almost programmed in a sense to be ashamed of being African.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't about the imagery, the
Yes.
size of our noses, the color of our skin, the size of our lips.
That's still to this day.
Still to this day.
Still
but yet,
to this very day.
But yet you have those who use that as a means to make you feel less than, who are now chasing those same things.
Exactly.
That's why you got all these BBLs and all the lip injections
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff. And that's just the truth.
It is.
That's just the truth,
is.
right?
It is.
But we have always, our society here has always made it somewhat of a stigma to be African.
Yeah.
Right? And now if you just think about the impact that would have on you, especially from the time you come up as a child. When you go through school, you have this stuff put into your head as a child. So it's going to bring you up a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? Your fabric is just going to be a certain type of fabric
Make you
because
ashamed of
that
how
is the
you
mental
look.
that's the mental programming that you have, right?
Yep.
So it's to reject things that are African.
Yeah.
And of course now, being as how we're older and how we've matured and we've gotten our education, inside and outside of formal school, right? You get a chance to see what really is, right? And so, but those are things that we dealt with. And so, that society also helped to put certain perceptions in your mind about what Africa is and who the people of Africa are and what's there and what life is like there, what life is, right? We know all the imagery that we saw on TV.
Yeah.
It's always been presented as Africa is just this totally impoverished place and everybody's hopeless and everybody's uneducated and uncivilized. That is what was given to us.
Yep.
Right? And so again, if you think about it as children, when you're coming up in grade school, you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? If this is what you're fed, then your mind not being developed or fully mature at that point, guess what? You'll believe it.
Yep.
Right? Because you're not given the true education, about what history truly is, right? But then you're being fed these images and these ideas, and having a mind that's not mature or sophisticated enough, you internalize it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, and so these are things that we've just dealt with, and to a large degree, not to a large degree, or to some degree, we still do. But fortunately, we are far along enough to where we push back against it, right?
Yeah.
Because now
We now know better.
And so it's up to us, I think, at this point,
Exactly.
to take and go resolve those things, and we can only do that by putting it out there and sharing
Absolutely.
it.
Yep.
So you can even think back to back in the early 90s. Back in the early 90s, man, hip hop and rap music was not remotely what it is today. And those of you who are in any age group to remember the 90s and what happened when we had groups like Public Enemy and X-Clan, and
EPMD.
Queen Latifah and all them. Not so much EPMD, but I'm talking more so the Afrocentric.
Oh yeah.
Those who were socially conscious rappers.
KRS-One.
You know what I'm saying? KRS-One, all of them, where they started to educate on the history.
Yeah.
And they started to put forth the imagery,
Yep.
of Africa and what they wore and how they spoke, the language they used, and guess what happened? The music industry dismantled it.
Sure did. He was actually talking about that.
They pulled the promotion money from behind it, and they started to put the money behind the stuff that's destructive. Because to educate ourselves about what it is that we truly came from makes us probably more of a threat.
Yeah, they see it as a threat. That's pretty much what he said. He did an interview on that. KRS-One did, and said that very thing, that was the problem. They said they didn't want to hear that I was, speaking about things that were going on and that I was socially conscious and all that. He said they didn't want to hear that.
How we were kings and how we function in our tribes and and the science. That we innovated, and the mathematics and the agricultural techniques, all of those types of things. We were talking about those things, and it was something that they couldn't stand, right? And so they dismantled it. And we find ourselves where we are today with, in my opinion, music that's a lot more destructive, and it doesn't propel us forward as a people.
Right.
It has us focusing on the wrong things.
Thing, yeah.
That's us
I
focusing
agree.
on the wrong things. Because I remember, man, I had my African medallion and my big beads I was wearing back in the day. You remember?
Yes, I do.
That was it. We were too black, too strong, man. We were proud of our African heritage in the 90s because we were just beginning to learn about it, to learn some of the things. And before you know it, one of the largest and most powerful mediums that we have, that being music. Again, a discussion that I had with somebody today, we're talking about the power of music in movements, right? So that's what it was. And so with that, another thing that I would like us to keep in mind is that, we as people are not necessarily our governments.
Right. We are not.
We're not our government.
We are not.
Especially minority groups. And I speak specifically to black people.
Yeah.
Right, in the United States, because our struggle has been unique, and while there's always a certain level of patriotism that you have for your country. I mean, it's no different, and we saw that even with South Africa, with the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to them Springboks. Been reading up a little bit more on them, which they had a little drama around one of their players that just broke up with his girlfriend. I forget his name, but he's in the news recently. I guess she's now upset with him and got a restraining order or something against him. She said she doesn't want to be bothered with him anymore because he's been abusive to her or something like that. I forget his name, but I read that story just earlier today. Oh, by the way, so I got on my I got a compliment on this today. I got a compliment on this when I was in the store. Yeah, somebody saw my shirt. This is my cycling shirt that I have. This is my I'll turn this way. Right here to the camera on this side so they can see my South African flag there. But yeah, this is one of my cycling shirts, which I have a couple of South African cycling shirts that I wear. And I've actually had these shirts for these cycling jerseys for a couple years now. I bought them back during COVID, and it was back during the time when we really started to turn up our interest in the South Africa. And I had a couple people when I was riding my bicycle. I was cycling, and he's like, "Hey, are you from South Africa?" And I was like, "No, I'm not from South Africa." And plus, they obviously knew when they heard the accent or the lack of a South African accent. And they had a connection as well at the time, and that's why they asked. Either they knew somebody there, they had been there before, whatever, but the jersey attracted their attention. And I told them at the time, I was like, no, I said, but I'm looking very forward to going there. We got a trip booked there soon, and I'm going to own a home there. That's my plan, we want to own a home there. So, I'm kind of getting into it now, and I love the jersey. I found it. I was representing whenever I ride my bicycle. A lot of times I'm wearing my South African bicycling jersey, and I'm looking very forward to at some point to having a chance to run and ride in Johannesburg South when I'm over there sometime, because I said that's one thing I saw quite a few cyclists.
Oh yes,
we were in our area, and that
walking
area
and running. It was a lot
that
of
area up
there.
and down Clip Revere is just perfect for running and cycling. So I'm looking very forward to that. The scenery over there is just so beautiful.
Yeah, me too.
As we were going back and forth to the Mall of the South down there. So that's my cycling jersey. So I represent South Africa when I'm riding my bicycle and stuff. So, but she gave me a compliment on this shirt. She's like, "Oh, I love that shirt. That's a nice shirt." I was like, "Thank you."
Yes.
I look good in this, by the way, too, y'all.
Yeah, you do.
I look
You
good
do.
on this.
Yes,
that's
you
right.
do.
So, but like I was saying, we're not a government.
Yeah.
And I would like for our brothers and sisters over there to understand that, and I'm thinking as I say this, a comment that was made on our podcast channel. Someone spoke specifically to African Americans serving as part of the U.S. defense complex, and that's the terminology that they would apply, because I'm assuming that's that's what you call it in South Africa, or whatever. I'm assuming that this individual was from South Africa. They could have been from another country on the continent, but nevertheless, basically what they're saying is U.S. military.
Okay.
Which of course I'm a former U.S. military guy, and it made me think. And by the way, coincidentally, today in the United States is Veterans Day, where they recognize and honor those who served in the U.S. military. I chose to not celebrate that this year, and it's primarily because I'm coming into a different stream of consciousness as far as that goes. I view it as, yes, that's something that I did, and yes, I did serve. I cannot change that. But, having a different level of consciousness, especially given the world events that are taking place right now, with the conflicts that that we have out there, whether it be in Ukraine, or the conflict that's happening in Gaza, in Palestine, between the Palestinians and the Israelis right now. It just gets to be too much. You got, even stuff going on the continent, in East African nations, you have some warring going on and those types of things. But it just gets to be, sometimes it gets to be too much. And it's like, you just want to take a step back from it, so but I do understand that. And they made a comment about that. And that, in fact, is what made me to go look up, because they made mention of Angola. And when I read up on the conflict in Angola back in the early 1970s and the role that the U.S. played as opposed to, the other superpowers like, say, Russia and China, and Cuba was involved at one point. And ironically, I learned at the same time that the Independence Day in Angola was declared, guess what? Today. How coincidental and how ironic.
Wow.
They declared their independence on November 11th, 1975.
Wow.
Right? But in the process, I learned about the role that the U.S. played in that particular conflict, right? And I say that to say, it goes back to the point that I made a second ago, is that even serving in the U.S. military, which I did, I think I would like for one other thing that they said was, yes, they acknowledged that, but they said, yet I also understand how serving in the defense complex helped to pull African Americans, or some African Americans, out of poverty. And that is indeed true. And with that, I would like to say, in those particular cases, or that particular scenario, a lot of times when we join the military over here, that's really what it is. Like I said, there's always a degree of patriotism that you have for your country. I think that we all do. But at the same time, when I was a young kid coming up, I was 18 when I joined the military. A lot of countries out there have mandatory military service, so you have no choice.
Right.
You'll join the military or you'll go to jail.
Right.
Right. And even in our country, in the United States, if they institute the draft and you are of age and you choose to not join the military, you'll go to jail.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where there's a certain level of conformance that we're all, even though we may have certain political viewpoints or whatever, we're bound by certain laws and stuff like that, and a level of conformance, if you will. And so that makes it tough.
Yeah,
it makes it tough. And then when you're younger, you just see, I'm living in poverty.
How can I get out?
I can't go to college. I can't afford to go to college.
Right.
Or maybe I'm not, I don't want to say smart enough, or maybe I'm not cut out intellectually for the rigor of an advanced education. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And
the military could be your way out.
And that's a lot of times the way that we see things here. And it could be because society is deliberately structured that way.
Yeah.
Because one thing that we do know about the U.S. military is that you rarely see fighting in wars people from privilege and people from wealth fighting in wars and joining the military. That's just not the way it is here in the United States.
Yeah.
It's rare, right? You typically see people who are of lower economic and social status that make up the military for the most part.
Good point. Yeah.
So, something to keep in mind. And with that, and the way I saw it when I joined the military is like you're fed this steady diet of our country is the shining beacon on the hill kind of thing. It's like, we're responsible for going out there and defending freedom and democracy around the world. That's the narrative that we're given from the time we were kids, right? And so when you put on that uniform or you sign that contract to join the military, because I never once thought that I'm going to would potentially be standing across from someone going to war against my brother or sister or whoever, right?
Exactly.
You don't really internalize it like that.
Right. Nor is it presented to you in that way.
It's not presented to you that way. It's presented to you by the recruiters that come to your high school and say, hey, we got this great opportunity for you. You can, join the military and we'll send you to school. We'll give you a roof over your head. We'll pay you a salary. You go through all this great training, get this advanced training and education, and you can build a great life for yourself after you're done with your service.
Yeah, because if you're telling someone that's young, 18 or younger, oh yeah, potentially you may have to go to war, they may be afraid and not want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and that's why I went into the branch that I went into instead of joining the Army, because my father was in the Army, right, and he fought in the Vietnam War, right, and he was fortunate to be one of the ones who made it back because he was on the front lines, But me, I was not looking to be on the other side of somebody's, muzzle of their rifle, right? So because I had an advantage of having the education to be able to qualify, for the advanced technical fields, right?
Yeah.
That's what I pursued.
Yeah.
Of course, I had a very demanding job, very critical job, and as well. And my particular job was one that we don't want to ever have to engage, because I was in the nuclear submarine force. So, we were that last line of defense for all things existent in the earthly realm.
Right.
And so, but in retrospect, when I look back at it, it was a very serious thing. Once I got into it, it was not something that I could get out of. I had to serve out my obligation, and I did.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, in retrospect, it gives me a lot to think about. But I just want to put out there to kind of just maybe clarify some things and maybe shed some light on some things of the mentality, of those of us who serve and why we joined in the first place, and those types of things. Just as like I said, individuals with their own governments, they have disagreements with their governments about certain things. We have disagreements with our governments about certain things.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, we're citizens and we're subject to the laws and customs of that society. But nevertheless, I think armed with that information, I'm not sure that it changes much for future generations. I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe the world will continue to change and get better, and nations won't feel the need to war with each other, for whatever reason.
Hopefully.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
But all we can do is share the information.
Right.
So, but yeah, we have so many conflicts around the world where we have all these policy disagreements and stuff like that, and I just hope that we are sophisticated enough as people to not believe that because an individual is a citizen of a certain country that they walk in lockstep with that particular country's ideas,
that's just not the case.
From a geopolitical perspective. Because I even see, since when we were in Johannesburg last year, that was right during the start. They started that the war between Ukraine and Russia at that time. Now, of course, us being from the United States, our country's policy is Russia's bad. Why? Because of communism. It's an authoritarian regime, and by definition, the United States is a democratic republic or whatever. We believe in democracy, and so because we have a natural a long-standing conflict with Russia, then naturally, from the United States perspective, Russia's going to be bad, right?
Yeah, you're the enemy.
And again, we are here to express no opinions about either of the two. But I say that to say, when we were over there, I noticed watching the news over there and even listening to some of the perspectives from that side. Okay, I noticed that that particular perspective, and even still to this day, when you think in terms of bricks,
Oh yeah.
because we see a lot of stuff about bricks, right? You know, I can clearly see that there's a difference in perspective between those on the continent, because they view it from the perspective of West is bad, right? And we're not saying the West is necessarily good. We know that the West has many issues, just like people in the East do. That, in my opinion, not my opinion, but we'll just suffice to say that everyone has issues. Just like we have issues as people, just like people are saying, you know, we have our issues in South Africa. We have our issues in the United States that are just as challenging. Same thing on that level is what I'm saying. But I do notice that there's a difference in opinions between those two sides. And so for us as Americans, you know, who have a foot in South Africa, that's something that we're going to have to balance and deal with, right? We're going to have to hear it in this ear one way, and we're going to hear it in this ear the other way, right? Does that impact our ability to still reach out to our people with the ground that we have in common to figure out how to move forward at this level while we have all of this stuff swirling above our heads at these higher level, powers that be level, that have their own agendas?
Unfortunately, you have to keep it separate sometimes, you know, just to be able to really kind of get through it.
And deal with people,
right? Because
if
you allow what may be happening at the higher level to impact your ability to, you know, be able to have conversation and deal with, unite with, communicate with someone else, then I don't think we'll be able to do it. I mean, because if you can't separate it, then you won't be willing to, because you already have those opinions formulated in your head because you're going by what, you know, the higher powers or the government, whoever it may be, say. So that's why I feel personally that you need to have it separate, so that it allow you to be able to see through that and then come up and formulate your own opinion about how it is you want to deal with an individual.
I agree. I agree. And hey, we're finding our way through this thing. We are young in this thing, and only thing we can do is pledge to do our best to be decent people, and to and to try to educate, you know, where we can from this side, and be willing to receive the same education from the other side.
Right.
And it's not that it's, and when I say size, I just mean for the most part just geographically speaking.
Right.
Because we're here, our people are there.
Exactly.
You know, it's not this any adversarial side.
No.
Yeah. And though I realize there is I realize that not everybody, you know, approaches things or views things the same way that we do, or have the same approach that we do. Some people are not as positive about these situations, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. So we get that as well. But our goal is to you know, push through toward that positive side, because I think that's the only place growth really happens.
Yes.
With things, because I've seen stuff out here on the internet, you know, on YouTube, where people take certain positions that are more adversarial and stuff like that, and it's like, you know, us against you kind of thing. And
but what does that really accomplish?
Well, I think we're all playing into. I think we're playing into that game that the larger powers.
But then it keeps you separated,
and that's the whole idea, I think, because as long as you have people that are divergent, you know, in their viewpoints, or and not willing to see or try to meet or try to find that common ground,
right?
Then, you know, then those who have the motive of continuing their exploitation while they keep you fighting, they continue to win. I
mean, and it's okay to agree to disagree sometimes. No one's going to agree on everything. It's okay to disagree.
And it takes time. Sometimes it takes time.
Absolutely.
It takes time. It takes time for you to see things and digest things a little bit and see a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to come overnight. Put in that time. But again, we talking 521 years.
Right.
521 years of manipulation and damage that's been, you know, placed upon us, that we have to now chip our way through. You know, and I think now we are in a time where we can do that. Yeah. And so, you know, those dueling perceptions and stuff like that, you know, we can get through all that just by sharing the information
Yeah.
and listening to each other
Yep.
and listening to learn, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily listening to counter with our point,
Yeah.
to confirm our own bias. So yeah, and so our role, Mel and me, I think, is doing what we do now, is just increasing that conversation.
Yes.
Find a way to have those conversations, and if if there's don't ever feel shy about responding to anything that we cover in our episodes, or offering anything up for us, because that really does help drive content in many ways. That gives us other things to talk about, and especially during the times that we're not there, when we're spending more time over here, because we gotta keep the money coming in so that we can get on the plane and fly over there when we need to, and come over there and spend time when we do, and do some of the things that we want to do ultimately. On a longer term basis there. So yeah, but it does that for us. It allows us to just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But our role is to just increase those conversations. Where we have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
And bridging those divides. Another thing is with our investment.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Money, financial capital, and ultimately time. More time as time goes by.
Yeah.
More time investment there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
But definitely in continuing to find ways to invest.
Yeah.
Into the economy there, whether it be in real estate, or whether it be in companies, or whether it be in people.
Yeah.
Whether it be in business.
Yeah.
To just find those opportunities, but it's obviously gonna take us time, because these are things that you just don't jump into, right? Because it's a lot that you have at stake when you choose to do so, which a lot of times, most of the times, means money. Okay? Once that money's gone, you can't get it back.
Right.
If you don't get that return on investment, then it's gone, and when it's gone, you can't do anything else anyway. But definitely investing from that perspective, and along with, like I said, people. That's a good segue, into spending more time and experiencing South Africa and the people of South Africa on various levels. When we're out and about, when we're in our community, try to find ways to form more bonds with people. As we have when we were there. People who work in the community and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was good conversation.
People work in the community when we're out and about. Maybe we'll chance to get out and do more social things. We can
we'll definitely be able to do that the next time, because it was just so busy.
Yeah.
The last time when we were there. So now when we come back, we will be able to have the opportunity to do that more, to spend more time, just kind of meeting more people and building relationships while we're there.
Find opportunities for civic exposure.
Yes.
So that we can learn more about like civic society.
Yeah.
We can't get involved in it, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Because we're not citizens there. But we can observe, and we can, there may be something culturally. Maybe that's a better term to use there, rather than civically, cultural type events, more cultural type stuff. So we look forward to that. Exploring avenues for figuring out how to employ our specific professional skill sets. While we're there to benefit South Africa and the people of South Africa.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity eventually to take my skill set as a technical professional.
Yes.
And of course, that's going to take me kind of getting a sense, if you will, of things that go on over there and stuff, like say in the Johannesburg area, like what are the young people doing, educationally, what types of things that they have, activities, that they engage in by way of technology and education and different initiatives that they may have out there, right? That engages the kids or the young people, not necessarily just strictly young people, but people who are looking to innovate, right?
Yeah.
Those types of things. So I'm looking so forward to having the opportunity to, when we have a chance to dig in a little bit more over there, and finding and linking up with people who are doing different things over. And it's not even something that can necessarily wait to wait until we're there.
Right.
That's like I even think about like my music thing, right?
Yeah.
So if I can find me some Amapiano producers over there that I can hook up with, you can kind of teach me some tricks. We can work remotely. We can collab on some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Figure out how to mesh what we do over here or some of the vibes that I have with some of the things that they're doing creatively there. So there's just so many ways to start to connect, with our people over
I'm
there.
looking forward to just learning more and being able to work with the families and the children. That's really
from a
big,
social
from a
services
social
perspective,
services
trying to
perspective. That's really important and near and dear to my heart. Just to be able to learn more and get a better idea as far as just the different social services there, because obviously I know it's different in another country versus how it is here in the United States. So that's
different regulations,
different
governance,
everything is going
like
to be
that.
totally different. So it'd definitely be something that I'm looking forward to just even learning more about.
Yeah, maybe seeing where you might be able to provide some maybe ideas from your own experience. That might benefit. To help to better someone's situation.
Exactly.
And again, like we said before, we're just two people with ideas, just trying to figure out how we can use our individual skill sets to maybe contribute, and that's really all it comes down to, because that's all we can do is contribute, right? And maybe make a difference in a single person or a couple people here and there, and hopefully it spreads. But it's all about contributing, not taking. We are not by any means looking to come over there and take anything, because that's very important. Because those are the types of things that we see. I mean, even here, sometimes people's ideas, I think, become misguided. They become resentful, like the native peoples. And I speak here in the United States, which we deal with a lot of that. We deal with a lot of discontent amongst the citizenry, because we tend to have ideas that individuals who come from outside of our country are looking to come here and take from us. And to be totally honest, I've seen that same sentiment conveyed even over in South Africa in regards to, I've had statements made to me about foreigners, quote unquote foreigners that come from neighboring countries. And to me, to be totally honest, it's a little bit more difficult for me as an American, as a Black American, to digest that, because of the fact that in our mind over here, we've been so programmed to deal with that sort of thing coming from a non-Black majority.
Right.
And so to see that type of thing transpire between all Black nations on the continent, for me and us, I think is a little bit uncomfortable, for lack of a better way to put it. But we have to understand that we don't understand the societies over there. And so it's not something that we're placing judgment on, because we don't understand all the dynamics.
Exactly.
But we're just stating that it's something that we've seen, and that the impression that it gives us. But it's something that we just have to sit back and we have to learn. And we have to learn and watch without judging that. But we have similar things here in the United States. But at the same time, like I said, I look forward to us being able to contribute on some level. And it's going to take time, because these are something, some people are able to move quickly. And some people are willing to, they take a lot greater risk, right? But it's about risk management and just keeping the big picture, because you want to be stable when you're doing things. You don't want to find yourself in a position where you might falter, because if you falter, then you've done nobody any good. So we want to be deliberate about how we approach things.
Exactly, to be successful and not
to be
causing
successful.
harm.
That's the key. To be successful not only for ourselves, but the people that we attempt to build with and bond with.
Exactly.
And along with that, and one of the things that we're going to have to try to figure out is how we're going to swing some sort of temporary residency, temporary or permanent residency. And there's a lot of different things that can happen here in the United States that might move us toward that a lot quicker.
Yes.
But we are starting those investigations.
Yeah.
Start to do the basic legwork to figure out what would be required for us to at least have a temporary residency. Between being property owners, although we know that that's not exclusively grounds to get temporary residency, but we do have the critical skill set thing that comes into play that South Africa deems as having critical skills, which we both fall under that category. But the thing is trying to figure out how to work it within a specific timeline. Right. Because we can't just pick up and be on a plane tomorrow and go over there. It's something that we have to work toward gradually, and it's something that we for our purposes we have to do gradually.
And we are people who plan.
We are people who plan. And then we have a young son who's attending university here. He's in his first year of university.
Yeah.
And there are other certain situations, with our son that we have to make sure that we are deliberate about and we stay close to him, and if we do certain things, it just has to carry out a certain way. And so we have to move at a certain pace. So that's pretty much it. But we'll get it figured out. And we're gonna continue to work as we are and continue to develop, and plant those seeds and go back and forth between the two places and build there while we're continuing to build here. And who knows, we may have a situation where we can build there, and the fact that we're not there all the time might not matter because we got solid people that we're working with.
Right.
And things are moving forward. So
that's the goal.
So that's possible as well. So there's so much to be done that we're just excited about.
Very.
And we wanted to take this episode and just kind of speak to it some and talk about how we are, reaching across the waters, or how we try to.
Yes.
And so we invite any of our brothers and sisters over there to feel free to reach back. Give us any information, educate us. Like, share, subscribe. I forget that every time. We got through the whole broadcast and I can never.
We always forget.
And the reason is because, and you know what? Truth be told, we have never been the type that want to force people to follow our podcast and that type of thing, where we're not people chasing. The only thing that we've ever set out to do from the very beginning is to just the two of us, since we kind of like each other anyway, and we sit all the time just having laughs about stuff, whether it be no matter how absurd it is. Y'all don't get a chance to see all that, but we talk about anything and everything, and we take in information together. And so, we just want to just kind of share that with the world and stuff, since we kind of have a little bit more time to do that now that we have no more babies, and our youngest is in college
pretty
now.
much empty nesters.
So, and so it's easy for us. And so we don't really focus on share our channel with this person or that person, subscribe, because we're trying to get YouTube revenue and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's never been our focus. It's never been our focus. And so a lot of times we forget. So we just get into our conversations and stuff. And I know I tend to dominate a lot, but she likes more so just kind of parlaying off of. See? And she's quick to respond. Like she likes for me to drive
Absolutely.
stuff. So so that's what it is, y'all. But like, share, subscribe.
Yes.
We're not gonna ask any more. We just try to, educate, entertain a little bit, and just have things be organic.
Yeah.
So we appreciate y'all.
We do.
Spending the time with us. And we're gonna keep it moving.
Yes.
And as we like to say,
16.
into episode 16, which will be next week.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it's
Mel
and me. And this has been
The
The Podcast. Salagashi.